worry about it too much, Becca. Flying's all about navigation. As long as you've got a good navigator, I'm sure you'll be fine.
Okay folks, we're going to look at some navigation today. We're going to use a basic navigation technique and we're going to use a basic aeroplane. Most of the stuff you use in DCS has got good navigation equipment. It's good because it offloads your capacity. It helps you while you've got more than one aircraft to deal with, so your tactical formation. But you still need to keep your basic skills in order so you know what's happening and what to do if it all comes off the rails. Now, generally speaking, the thing you want to remember is that the most important place to be is here. Target. The next important place to be is at the IP. Arguably, you could say the IP is the most important because that's what's going to get you to the target. But you need to think of everything as something that funnels you into the target area. So the navigation points that you see here, 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 and so on and so forth, they are really a method to get you to the IP. You'll notice there's an elapsed time along the way past those waypoints. If you'll find yourself off time, that's your reference to cut corners as required to try and achieve the aim. So the sort of route that you may end up flying, if you take off late, you'll fly down to the first waypoint, you fly to the second waypoint, something happens at the second waypoint, walking out for the bad guy, you end up coming here, clearly you're late because 6 minutes 47 has passed and you haven't yet achieved the turn towards that waypoint there. Different methods you can use, but the prime method we're going to look at is to turn on time. So at 6 minutes 47 seconds or thereabouts, you will turn for waypoint 4. Now it's not going to be that simple to find it. You have to use your judgment, and I think I would turn approximately 45 degrees to the left instead of the 90 we were going to do here. We'll do 45 degrees to the left, and that'll get me to waypoint 4. And I'm kind of hoping that when minute 8:21 gets there, then we'll be able to be reverse the turn, obviously, or bring the turn back to the left, and we're back on track. The same would apply here. If we found ourselves here at 12 minutes and 51 seconds elapsed time, make the turn. Make an adjustment such that you can get to the IP. The IP itself needs to be something you're going to find. If it does not feature on your half-mil map, this is a half-mil scale map, 1 to 500,000. If it doesn't feature on the map, it is useless. You will not find it and you will not see it. Notwithstanding that, if you do stuff in Vegas on the NTTR range map, there's a lot of lakes marked which actually aren't there because they're dried up lake beds, salt beds, that kind of thing. And also a lot of the hills look pretty much the same. We're very lucky in our home area that we operate in that we've got a lot of good navigational features to give you situation awareness. So coming back to the original point, your IP must feature on your half-mil map because remember, everything is about getting to that IP. So that's basically how we're going to fly these particular routes. I've also got it saved as a mission. You guys can have a go at it. Try it in any aircraft. Okay, you don't need to load it into your nav kit. There is a kneeboard card. This is done with the app that's out there, Combat Flight I think it's called, which will plan a route for you. Bit jiggery pokery, but once you get the settings as you want them, it will all work. A couple of things then that are also on the map that I'm going to talk about so you can see this map and you can understand what it's all about. The first thing is, of course, the waypoints, marked as circles, things that you're going to find. Don't look at specific points on the ground. You're looking for a general awareness of what things are and where they are. So in this instance, waypoint 1, you're looking at is nestling really basically in a horseshoe of the hills, and it's just turning abeam the town. Again, nice and simple. Route study as well. It brings you across a mountain range we can see here, which will help us in the case of bad weather. There's your mountain range. And also you're going to find the base of a town or the southern end of a town as you get there. Likewise, a little airfield attached to the end of the town. Airfields are quite hard to see because airfields, they come up at you at once. Okay, so you're either over it or you're not. If you're not over it, it's actually quite hard sometimes at low level to figure out where the airfield is. However, your next waypoint's a good one because again you've got this right angle of mountains, and again if you find yourself here, it doesn't actually matter. As long as you know where that waypoint was, you can turn. Coming along the flat area here, we've got a couple of things to help us out. We're running along initially the southern end of that ridge line. Got a nice little hill here to mark ourselves where we are, and we're pointing at a little hill there slightly to the right of it. For that reason, do not look at your map unless you're looking at something specific like the timings. You don't need your security blanket. Your route study that we've done just now will tell you that is the waypoint that we're going to use at number 5. I know it's the right hand side of a mountain. The only reason I'm going to pick up my map is to check what time do I need to be there. Am I on time? Remember, today we're doing this without any nav kit. So there's your waypoints. Your IP obviously always marked with a square and your target always marked with a triangle. Worthy of note as well is not to get caught up in what the maneuver is off target. I do not expect you to be going to the target and turning a hard left. This is just a representation only in this case, and I would be briefing that to the formation. The formation brief would be, we're going to pass through the target, or I will pass through the target. You will pass through the target after me, having come in on battle on whichever side I would brief, in this case probably on the starboard side. You're going to pitch in after me, keep me visual. You're going to call off. Meanwhile, I'm up here. When you call off, you turn towards the next waypoint, waypoint 8. I turn towards waypoint 8. I might converge gently, but I know if I look over my left shoulder and over to the left-hand side in my 9 o'clock position, there you'll be in battle. It doesn't matter where we cross the coast here. The idea is we cross the coast, turn left, get out of enemy territory, and back towards base. Other things that you can see on the map here, we've got the FLOT, which is the forward line of own troops, and I've also on previous maps, I don't think I've got it on this one, yes I have, I've got a fiscal, which you'll find that there, that's the markings of it there. The fiscal is the fire support coordination line. You'll notice our target is within the fire support coordination line. What that means is we do not drop bombs where we're not supposed to within that fire support coordination line, because artillery is coordinated, ground fire is coordinated, rockets are coordinated, you name it, stuff is coordinated in there with combined operations, and that's in terms of the army and all the other people with their heavy metal. So you don't drop willy-nilly inside the fire support coordination line. Likewise, when we cross the FLOT, forward line of own troops, always endeavour to do it at right angles. You want to be over the back of your own boys' heads and then straight across the front line. If you run along the FLOT, everyone with a weapon has got an opportunity to bring you down. Your own troops will attempt to bring you down. They're terrified, they see an aeroplane, they'll point their rifle at you and loose off a magazine worth. So always cross the FLOT if you can at right angles. Remember, we're talking about this at low level. We're doing it the Brit way. What we're not going to do is what the other forces do. I know the US forces do a lot of this. They'll do their high level stuff because they've got total air superiority. We haven't got total air superiority. So what's going to happen is that we're going to fly this route. And if we find ourselves not on time, we're going to cut corners and we're going to achieve it. So all the time we're flying at 420 knots at a good defensive sort of a speed at 7 miles a minute. That's why we do 420 knots. It's a nice round number of 7 miles a minute. Your gloved thumb, as you place it on your map, is approximately 1 minute because it's 7 miles long, there or thereabouts. The American system, what they like to do on their big combined operations, they'll all get airborne nice and early, and just like the 1,000-bomber raids used to happen in the Second World War, they'll marshal all round the corner here in circles and circles. Oh, it's time to push now, and then they push, and off they go. Meanwhile, every man and his dog and radar can see what's going on and can see that there's a raid building. We tend not to do that. Remember, we cannot rely on total air superiority. Another thing that you'll see on the map here, which may not be relevant, I've roughly done these based on Harrier figures. I'm going to fly this mission in a Tomcat for the demonstration, but in the Harrier, these are fairly close to a low-level chicken. So if I find myself at this point here, heading that direction, with the fuel there, I think on the chicken, what we said there is £4,000. If I find myself there with £4,000, I'm in trouble. I need to be heading back towards base. That is a low-level chicken line directly to base, to land at base with enough fuel to get to my diversion. Now, my diversion today, we tend to use the airfield that's slightly to the northeast of us. This one here, I believe. I think that's Kutaisi, but I'll have a look when I bring the map out again. So let's get airborne in our basic Tomcat. We've planned the route, we've done headings, we've done times, and we've done waypoints. What we haven't done is loaded it into the nav kit, because remember, today we're just looking at basic navigation skills. This could be a basic trainer, any aircraft type you fly, as long as you get the correct miles per minute into your target. So in this instance, it's 420 knots, 7 miles per minute, and we're off on our trip. Now we're going as a singleton today. We're going off at low level because we can do that out of our home base airspace where we've allocated our airspace, and we're heading off to the first waypoint. Now what I do remember is it's 071 is the heading for about 2 minutes 35. So we bring up the map, have a quick look at it, and we'll look at each individual leg. Settle down into your 420 knots, 7 miles a minute, onwards towards the waypoint. I know I'm going to be late. This was hastily planned and I haven't yet established a convention. Each aircraft type, you'll have your rules of thumb as to how long and how fast it will take you, or how quickly you'll get to 420 knots, or whatever your cruising speed is at low level. Remember from the Hawk, it was 90 seconds, a minute and a half, and I forget the distance, and that would be your first waypoint, knowing that a minute and a half in, you're going to be at 420. So we've kind of guessed it. But it doesn't matter because we're going to use a basic skill just to make sure that we start to achieve the other waypoints on time, even though we'll be at the first one slightly late. So how are we doing? Quick look at the watch, and we can see we've just been going for 2 minutes or so. Not too bad, so we've got another 35 seconds. Quick look out ahead, and I can see the waypoint is still some distance off. So already I'm taking a look to see where I'm going to be turning in a moment. So let's remind ourselves what we're looking for after the waypoint. Always be prepared. So flicking through to the next waypoint here on my knee board, I can see 343 degrees, 4 minutes and 15 seconds. So I know when I get to 235, I'm going to turn onto 343, but I'm going to make an adjustment, approximately 10 degrees or so to the right of that, because remember, I've turned short of the waypoint as described on the map pages. Because I've turned short, it's not a pure 90, and I need to cut the corner. But because I've turned on time, I've essentially taken out an entire swathe of errors there, and I'm hoping I'll be fairly close to the waypoint I need to be at 4:15. Once I've rolled out, I'm looking ahead, I can see a track check. I don't even need my map at this stage. I'm looking and I can see that there's a ridgeline ahead of me. After the left turn, I know roughly where I am. I'm outside of any controlled airspace, danger areas, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to cross that ridgeline and quick check on the map, and you'll see at 4 minutes 16 seconds, waypoint 2, just to the south of the town. And again, looking ahead, where I need to be after I get that waypoint or after I hit the time. And by the time I've done the turn at that waypoint, I've taken away the errors and we're back on time, on track. That's without nav kit, without diamonds in head-up display, and with no further help than just your stopwatch. So what about your wingman, I hear you say? We're flying in battle formation here. He expects me to be flying towards a particular heading. But remember, we're not necessarily flying a heading. That's a guideline. We're trying to get towards the waypoints or roughly towards them. The battle formation is a big formation area, so being close enough is good enough as long as you're in battle formation. He should know what I'm trying to achieve, and it should not come as a surprise to him because it's what he would do if he was leading the formation. Remember, we're playing as Brits here. We do it the Brit way, where you always work up towards being the leader, and you are the leader as the junior guy in training such that you can step up when the time comes. So here we've made our turn. We've had to turn on time. We were slightly short of the waypoint. Quick look at the map and see what we need on the way. And I'll also remember from my navigation planning when I put this plan together in the planning room with the rest of my formation mates and my navigator that we're going to cross a river, we're going to pass an airfield. And how close we come to that airfield will decide how far we are off track. But again, I'm not too bothered. A quick look to the left, I can see the ridgeline in the hills where I know a subsequent waypoint is buried in there. So I'm heading in that direction. And the beauty of this is the weather is gorgeous. You do not need to spend time looking at your map. Have faith, use the force. You know you're heading towards the correct waypoints. The most important one, remember, as we said in the brief on the map, is your IP and then into the target. So here comes the airfield that we know should be passing down the right-hand side. A little bit closer than I expected, but remember we turned short and we're slightly off the heading towards the waypoint. Now a quick word before we look into the other stuff and I speed this up. We're doing this on an elapsed time. So each of the waypoints is an elapsed time from when I start the stopwatch at the takeoff point. Now that's not ideal for getting a specific time on the target unless you achieve that by pressing the stopwatch button at the same time you release the brakes, at the same time you expect the takeoff time to be, working back from your planning. It's not always the case. There are more advanced methods of doing it where you will hack the watch at a particular real time in UTC, or GMT if you prefer to call it that way. You will hack it at a specific time and then the elapsed time reflects what your stopwatch says. So you might even be doing that as you're starting the aircraft up. That's what would happen if you were running late. There are lots of different techniques as long as you brief the technique you're going to use and you find the method that works for you. So here we are, we made our turn. The airfields obviously are quite difficult to see, but we know we're heading in the right direction now. So we're going to head towards this ridgeline now. We're going to make a left-hand turn and we'll just look at a couple of track checks. And again, we'll use something that we can see in the distance because that's what we chose as navigation points. So let's speed it up just a little bit till we get there. Nope, that wasn't quick enough, so we're just going to fade into the next leg. And we're just a few minutes into that next leg now, running down. We've got our weapons all sorted out, and I'm looking ahead, and I can see from my map at 12:51, there's a wooded ridge line that comes left to right, a slight hill. At that point, I'll make a right turn onto my IP. In these relatively quiet periods on the longish legs and the long transits, you've got the navigation sorted, you're not waving the map in front of your face, you're looking out of the window, you're checking you're doing 420 knots because that's what the timing's based upon, but it's also what your wingman expects you to be flying. If you don't fly 420 knots, he's going to have a nightmare trying to keep up with you and keep in the right formation position. Quick look at the watch, see how we're doing, and start thinking about getting everything ready in your head-up display and in your aircraft for your weapons. Don't be doing it at the IP. At the IP, you want to be looking ahead. So I can see my pre-IP, which is the ridge line up ahead, or the ridge going from left to right down towards the ground there, and I know I'm going to be turning there at 12:51 or thereabouts. And to the right, you can start to see the hill that is the IP. And recall, right at the start of this video, we talked about the IP must be visible on your half-mil chart. Otherwise, you will not see it at all. If that had been some kind of river junction, are you going to see it from here? The answer's no. So I'm flying in at the moment with a very warm, fuzzy feeling that I'm fairly close to being on time for the requirements for this mission to get the bombs on target on time, and I'm also fairly accurate on navigation, and I know where I'm going, and that instantly eases all of my capacity to get my eyes on the target, to get the bomb on the target, because remember, you're not going to find a diamond on the target. Okay, let's jump ahead again. Let's fade on into the pre-IP. So we're approaching the pre-IP now. We've identified the IP, and we're turning right on our 90-degree turn to get to the IP. Now we're getting very close to enemy territory at this stage. Remember, this is all very close to the FIBA, so we're thinking about our speed, we're thinking about our height. One of the most important aspects here, remember, is what you're going to do with your wingman. Now that has been briefed. We're doing this as a singleton, but it's a fundamental part of the brief. We don't want him to turn up at the IP and then suddenly realise, I've got no idea what to do. Quick look at the map then, you can see where we're going. We've got the side of the hill, the 1516 hill, down in towards the end of the lake for the IP. And I can see already there's my IP. That's the hill with the woods on the top of it. Now in reality, it's not good practice to be running over towns, especially on the forward edge of the battle area. Remember what I said, every man and his gun is going to be pointing it at you. But for this exercise, a training exercise, we'll accept it. Through the IP and onwards into the target. I don't really need the heading because it should be more or less straight on through. And my extensive target study and at the planning stage to learn to identify this target, I've thought about where the sun is, where the wind is, what the weather is, what's going to stand out, where the defences are. All those factors mean that I'm looking only out of the front to lay that bomb fall line through the target and pick all the bombs off. Now for the egress. This has been also extensively briefed. Remember, the plan says a hard 90 left, but we're not going to do that. I'm waiting for the number 2 to call off, because that's what I briefed. As soon as he does, I make a left-hand turn and we regain our battle formation. If he's come through the target on the right-hand side and slashed across the target, we've gone through at about a 45-degree angle, so he then just increases his angle and I take the 90. And you can see we're going now onto the coast. It does not matter where we cross the coast. We're running away from the target. I know my wingman is on my left and I'll pick him up in battle formation on the left-hand side. We're still in enemy territory. The game is not over yet until the fat lady sings. So essentially, you're still at low level, you're still egressing, and everybody that's a bad guy is still going to try and shoot you down. Let's watch a bit of an old training video that carries the same advice, although many years ago, it's still valid.
On this flight, no time was wasted scratching about on the map trying to identify odd pinpoints. Keep an eye on the clock, so as to only look for a landmark when it's due. And if you don't see a landmark, don't flap. Stick to your courses and ETAs. Careful flight planning makes navigation a certainty instead of a gamble.